Okay, this is a video about the audience feedback we got from our first cut of our music video. In terms of positives, they said costumes of the band were very good, very distinctive, and the fact they clearly demonstrated the punk rock genre by being black, which connotes death, depression, and the leather gave it quite a sort of more stylized and contemporary feel. The shots were very original, and like for example, there's one where there are two wine glasses and they chink together, and you see the male's face in between them, and so that has quite a few symbolic references, and also just makes him look quite inferior compared to the female character, and also helped you to empathise with the characters themselves, so you understood more of why you're supposed to not like him and why you are supposed to like the girl, and vice versa. The cyanide being put into the glass was also a shot that a lot of people liked. They thought that visually it was very kind of stylized, and you saw the way it sort of dripped to the bottom, which you could argue referred to the characters, but also it just looked quite visually distinctive. You know, it really stood out. It was quite vibrant as well, because obviously it had the backdrop of the pint glass, so it was shining, and they just really liked it. They thought it was something that stood out. They also appreciated the use of setting, so we used a pub for the narrative shots, which it incorporates a sense of verisimilitude, I guess, because it was, a real legitimate pub, so it was a setting that the audience could relate to, and they'd therefore be able to buy more into the story itself. And we also used a tunnel for the performance shots, which had quite kind of gritty and dark connotations with all the graffiti on the wall and the fact that it was quite old and dreary. And so that linked in quite well with the mood and tone we wanted to establish with the music video, and particularly with the performance shots, because obviously they're very kind of expressionistic, quite very aggressive, very passionate. Also, for stuff to improve on, they said that the camera was quite shaky, particularly in the performance shots, but the reason we did that was so that we could, as again, help to convey that sense of grit and just I guess a lack of control was one of the things we talked about early in the research stages, and also the weight of performance shots to the narrative. So obviously, because the narrative is quite simplistic, there's not that much to go with in terms of the story, so therefore the shots are a bit more limited, and by having more performance than narrative shots, the performance shots became quite repetitive. I mean, even though we tried to keep up with different variety of shots, so we had mid shots, we tried to do some establishing shots with the dolly, but the camera was especially shaky then, even for us. And so yeah, if we could do it again, I guess we'd put in some more narrative, because one element that we thought didn't quite come across was the fact that there was a second girl, which kind of motivated the main female character to obviously poison the male with cyanide. And so if we had more time and more resources, we probably would have done that. But it's also getting a setting which fitted the criteria which we needed, and that particular pub was something we could only get for a very short amount of time, and when we started filming it, it got dark quite quickly, so we also had to consider the fact that the lighting was changing in the background, and that would therefore affect the lighting in the pub and how that looked on screen. And also, there could have been more of a connection between the performance and the narrative itself, so maybe they didn't work as well with each other, so maybe we could have had some different transitions, or maybe even had the settings sort of feed into one another. So the tunnel with the graffiti could have, I don't know, just been around the corner from the pub. That way there would at least be, I don't know, more sense of consistency. But after looking at this feedback, we did change some stuff to it. We made the camera shots less shaky, so we did some refilming, and there was also an application on the Mac computers where you're able to just sort of slow down the shots and make sure they're just a bit more steady, a bit more consistent, a bit more professional and legitimate, which is obviously what we were trying to go for. So yeah, we really appreciated the audience feedback. We got a lot of people involved. We had a questionnaire for them to fill out with questions not just about our music video, but about music videos in general, what kind of stereotypical conventions they look at, what they look for, what they expect to see. And so we did our best to include a majority of them, so that they would particularly be able to realise that this video was part of the punk rock genre, and therefore be able to identify our artists within that same genre.